This is an entrepreneur's masterclass, and it's everything you need to know about procurement as an entrepreneur. It's designed to give you the basics to feel more intelligent as you're entering into procurement conversations and into buying and selling conversations. Once you understand what it is and how it applies, it makes things easier for you and your business. So let's talk about what it is. Procurement means to obtain something, and it is simple. That is a definition. It gets complex when you understand that every single business is different. Every single procurement process is different. When you think about Mars, the candy company, to obtain the chocolate that they use in their candy bars and other candies, they have to negotiate agreements with the towns that own these chocolate farms, whatever. You think about, let's take a company that manufactures these pens. They are looking for the plastic components that go in the pens, and they're working out relationships with those plastic companies. And then there's print suppliers. They need the machines that actually print the logos on pens like this. So procurement is a wide range of things, from physical goods to services. Internet. I'm recording this video and able to upload it because I have access to the internet. I pay an internet company for that service. That internet company has procurement. It has to procure the fiber optic cables that it sends the internet through. It's procurement in itself, but I am procuring it for myself. So it's this like meta concept where it's like it stacks on top of each other, and it's like it's all procurement. The world is procurement. So when you ground yourself in that, it becomes a little bit less overwhelming because you're realizing that procurement is just a way for us all to be in relationship with one another and manage those relationships. It's a somewhat rigid process depending on what companies you're working with. So let's start with the first topic I want to go over is how do you get paid? Now, procurement does mean to obtain something, but typically you are either obtaining or you're being obtained. If you're selling to large corporations, you are the thing that's getting obtained. Where there's a service, if you're selling DJ services for a corporate event, you could be selling catering services, selling consulting services. They procure you. And in order for that to work, they have to onboard you into their system and pay you for the actions that you are performing. And so for that to happen, you need to be in their systems. And they typically have their own systems. If you have Coupa or Jagger, there's a lot of different procurement systems that you interact with. And some of them are as simple as QuickBooks. They onboard you into their QuickBooks and then they cut you a check. It's important for you to understand that every single company and policies are different, and you want to get ready to work in multiple systems because the only way for you to get paid is to work with these systems. Now, when you get to a certain scale, you demand a bit of power in the relationship. You can push back and say, I'm not going to use your procurement system. But in order to get paid swiftly, you want to be aware that these systems are different. It's going to require different actions from you, and that takes different capacity internally for you, because if you're going to be selling to different types of people, different systems, you want to make sure your systems are scalable to interact with those systems, because it will become an administrative burden if you don't have that administrative capacity built into your business. That's on the how do you get paid. Now, how do you pay other people? You also have to decide what your procurement systems look like. You have to decide, do you onboard them directly? Do you pay them via check? Do you pay them via ACH? You do yourself pay via credit card? Those are typically system decisions that are made depending on if you're selling online and you want to integrate with a provider like a Shopify or depending on what payment integration systems you can choose to use for a procurement system at your level typically. And I'm defining this video is really based for solopreneurs and people with small teams. You don't need a procurement system that is overly complex, and you can perform most actions with simple payment and infrastructure. But you want to work with people like Bill.com who are incorporating procurement elements into their core product, so that way you don't have to change your system to pay your suppliers. And a lot of times you don't really have to overcomplicate your procurement system, because you are working with an Upwork or a Fiverr, and they handle a lot of that management on your behalf when it comes to services. And when it comes to other items, there's kind of some workarounds. We're going to talk about procurement decisions. So procurement decisions are you making a decision on how to source something in your business. I have a framework that I use in my procurement playbook, and it's very simple. You set out a goal, you set out your budget, set out what you're looking for, and then there's an evaluation framework to match this. I recommend any decision that you're deciding to spend money on in your business, you go through this framework because you want to make sure that you are of sound mind when you're making the decisions and they're not relational. When you're first starting out in your business, a lot of decisions are based on like who you might know, who can do that service, and sometimes that creates bias. And you want to create a rigid system for that decision making because it avoids emotional reactive decisions. And I still fall victim to this. When I don't use this framework, I make bad decisions. So I'm recommending this specifically because I use it and it works. You don't need to hire someone to manage your procurement process because you typically, until you have a couple hundred employees, it doesn't make financial sense. But you can, however, incorporate systems that a project manager can manage, an operations manager can manage, but be very clear that they are managing a procurement process. This is part 1 of the masterclass because I'm still working through how to format this. So there will be a part 2. Thanks for listening.